Alrighty, folks. Let's see if this one actually works. So, okay, so first off, I have to get a better camera angle. Good. Gotta see at least some of my amiibos. As you guys can see by my shoulder here, I finally got the Byleth amiibo. On like already. Oh my gosh, you guys are something else. I barely even started talking and you're already loving it. Hey, Jovel. I'm doing great. Now you can actually hear with my voice that my niece was born today, so that was kind of a shock. I was just walking into the basement casually, and my mom just says, "Congratulations, Uncle." So that was really exciting. Let me quickly send a link to the people on my Twitter so that they can follow along, just in case they didn't get the notification. So one moment while I do that. Alrighty, hopefully that helps. Did my webcam just go out again? Oh, there we go. Oh, that scared me for a minute. Are you still there, Jeva? Because here I thought, man, why do my eyes look so tired? Let me try moving back a bit. Because it looks like I didn't get any sleep. Okay, let's try this. Okay, I think that's good. So, keeping in mind that most of my audience isn't as familiar with the Zero Escape games as you are, if we're going to talk about it here, we have to be a bit more selective about what we talk about. So try to talk about, maybe talk about 999 if you're going to talk about anything, just in case there's someone here who, well, thank you. Glad to hear it. People say that one thing that they really enjoy about me is that I tend to have a very gentle, relaxed tone of voice when I'm not critiquing Nintendo or corporations, because corporations, they kind of know what they're doing a lot, and they know that they're going to be treading on people's toes, or at the very least, they won't listen to people that tell them that they're doing it wrong, and they kind of just say, you know what, the money does the talking more than most people, and that just bothers me. Now, I'm not expecting to get too many people because it is Easter time, and for some reason that makes people feel obligated to hang out with people that they wouldn't see otherwise, but I'm not going to be seeing any of my relatives until late at night, so I can keep going and going and going on streaming until about, well, I'm not going to go that long. My voice will be dead by then, but I'm probably going to go until at least probably about an hour or two, give or take. Well, let's remove these in case that creates a controversy. E3? Are you talking about the actual E3 or? Oh, cause didn't they say that they were gonna put E3 back on this year? Cause it was canceled last year, but like there's gonna be a virtual equivalent somewhere. By the way, if I'm dropping frames, guys, I honestly can't tell you why that would be, because I am literally like right across the hall from the Wi-Fi, and my bars right here say that it's all the way up in strength. So I don't know what kind of bizarre logic is going on if somehow this stream is less than adequate quality. So, what are some of the details that you've heard about virtual E3? Because I haven't heard anything. I'm really curious to see how they're going to handle it. I definitely think not having E3 last year Well, honestly, I really only care about Nintendo, and Nintendo didn't really do E3 very much. They kind of just pre-made their presentation, so that was okay for me. 2020 could have been better for them, but at least we got Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. So I'm not complaining because I never beat the original Xenoblade Chronicles, but Definitive Edition had plenty of accessibility options, and that really helped me a lot because I don't know, maybe it's because I'm getting old, but I'm having trouble with games lately. Oh, well, I had a time limit growing up. And so when my friend Justin would always say, "Oh, just get good at games," I'd say, "I can't get good because I can only play for so long before I have to turn it off." Most people who get good, they're usually able to play the game for like hours and hours at a time. And I mean, nowadays I can do that, but I couldn't back then. Oh, that's okay. We've still got time. Hello, Faze. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'll just say Jedi for now. You say you're back, but did you change your name? Because the name isn't familiar. Remind me of where we met, and that might help. But yeah, welcome to the stream. I'm sure if you remind me of what we talked about, I'll definitely remember you. But a lot of my fans tend to change their names a lot. I think I might vaguely remember that. And I actually did review Fortnite. I just that was back when it was only just starting. So I think it was like still that island. It didn't really have any themes. So I don't plan on re-reviewing Fortnite anytime soon just because there have been so many updates that I think it would probably be too much for my Switch memory card to handle. And not only that, but I'm like not very good at shooters. I know Fortnite isn't 100% a shooter, but it's enough of a shooter where I'm really terrible at it. That would be really cool if the final character is at E3. Because the last characters they revealed at E3 were Banjo and Kazooie and Hero. So it's definitely been a while since we got a reveal at E3. But who better to reveal at E3 than these guys? These are the characters I voted for in the Smash ballot. And let me tell you, it was so unreal when I picked this up because these guys are owned by Nintendo's competition, and yet we still have an official Nintendo accessory with the bear and bird. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I'm not excited for Byleth, but I feel like that was an inevitability, whereas Banjo and Kazooie, like the competition allowed for this. That's just mind blowing. So, regarding my channel's future, I always like to talk about my channel's future when I'm here. I am trying very, very hard to accommodate. Yeah, that would have been cool. Now I've never played Minecraft, but I can at least appreciate those that do like Minecraft and how it seems like they did the character justice. Personally, I didn't like playing as Steve, but I liked what came with the pack. I liked the music, the stage, the spirits, all of that was cool. Just the character was terrible. And I know it was because they were trying to stay faithful to the source material, but it didn't translate very well to a fighter I was good with. So I don't know if I'd have any suggestions to make him better, but I would say the resource management definitely could be patched out because there were several times where I wanted to use my crafting box and it wouldn't let me. And the range of the characters were just so short. Like I felt like I had to practically be on top of them, and by then I'd probably get smashed off the stage. Hey Zoe, happy Easter to you too. Congratulations on starting your own channel. I really hope for the best for you. Yeah, I actually hadn't even heard of Terry before before the reveal. I had heard of King of Fighters and Fatal Fury, but I wasn't like I wouldn't have been able to point out like, "Oh, Terry, he's the Fatal Fury guy." But I liked him decently, and he came with 50 songs, which was incredible. So Zoe, what are some of your plans for Easter? My plans for Easter are actually almost non-existent. Really, I'm going to be streaming with you guys for as long as my throat allows me to. And then at 6:30, my brother is coming over and he's bringing his daughter, which is nice. And Zoe, I don't think you heard this yet, but my other brother and my sister-in-law just had their first baby. So now that means for me, I'm now an uncle to two nieces. So I'm just really overjoyed that my family line could continue because for a while we thought it wouldn't. But yeah, I we because my siblings and I were the last of our namesakes line because everyone else had passed away. So when we found out that both of my sisters-in-laws were pregnant, it was it was a euphoric feeling to be like, "Oh my gosh, that's like kinda sort of a mini me." And to try to see, like, how she's like my brother. My first niece, Cecilia, she's already she's already quite the go-getter personality. She's already, like, trying to do stuff that a kid her age shouldn't be able to do, and my brother and my sister-in-law are basically saying, like, oh my gosh, she's probably going to be a go-getter personality, which is great because I was really hoping for a niece that wasn't like insanely shy. I was hoping for a niece that was like actually willing to talk. And Cecilia doesn't really know any words yet, but she at least like babbles and blows raspberries a lot. So I have a feeling she'll probably be like fairly extroverted because both my brother and my sister-in-law are fairly extroverted, so that should help. Yeah, Jebel, I'm blown away by how much you guys like Zero Escape. I've had a blast not only just watching my favorite game be done by well, my favorite series be done by someone else, but also just like I'm happy that you guys enjoyed it because man, it is such a niche franchise. Like you either love it or you've never heard of it. There's not really anyone I can think of who actively hates it after they've played it. Like even the people that might not like one game in the series will at least like one of the other ones. Like there are people out there that say that 999 is the only one that matters. There are people out there that say Virtue's Last Reward was the best and Zero Time Dilemma ruined it. And then you've got people like me that just love all three of them. So Zoe, just curious. So you said you really like philosophy. What do you find that's satisfying about philosophy? Like, how do you see it being relevant in your current life? Like, how do you think it'll help you, like, solve problems, pay the bills, that kind of stuff? Because for me, I see philosophy as just like overthinking everything and being just like, okay, why is the sky blue? Because light particles are going into the air and blue happens to be the color that is able to pass through the atmosphere. Why do we need to think about this more deeply than it is? I mean, it's fun to learn scientific facts, don't get me wrong, but I think from what I've heard, and I could be wrong, but from what I've heard, philosophy is more of like speculating about the unknown as opposed to fact checking. So I don't know how that can coexist with my personality, but that would be really funny if someone found out a way to do that. So Java, what about your plans for Easter, or do you celebrate Easter at all? Like, what do you plan on doing today? Just waiting for a bit while people catch their breath, because I can talk really fast sometimes. Yeah, yeah, that's totally fair. Trying to judge a game before you've seen the good stuff is definitely that's definitely good that you're waiting not to make a snap judgment. Oh, getting paid for philosophy. Well, yes, theology is a branch of philosophy, and I'm actually all right at theology. I wouldn't say I'm like at the level of my dad, who's an apologist, but I think I can at least. I can at least appreciate, like, why we believe what we do and all that. Yeah, that is true. Like, proving God's existence, that definitely helps. Well, that's totally okay, Jovel, because even some diehard Catholics like me sometimes, like, yes, we want to celebrate Easter, but we don't necessarily have a grand plan to, like, I don't know, have a cake and throw balloons everywhere. That's not always possible. So that's totally okay if you don't have plans. I'm not going to judge you. I don't really judge anyone here unless they start like physically attacking each other or like putting something overtly sexual. Like we need to keep this moderated. But you guys have never given me troubles, so I'm not worried about you. It's the trolls and the spammers that I'm concerned about. What other games I like, Jovel? I really like. Let's see. Well, I like a lot of games. My favorite video game is Breath of the Wild. So I like games that involve a lot of exploration. I'm a huge fan of a lot of the 3D Marios, except 3D World. That game stunk. I really like, well, Ace Attorney is a visual novel, so I guess that, Fire Emblem. I'm a diehard Fire Emblem fan. Three Houses is my third favorite game. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Smash Brothers, most of them. And I just recently realized that Path of Radiance is an underscored masterpiece. So, primarily like turn-based strategy, adventures, and some platformers. Like the Sonic games are cool, or in the Will o' the Wisps was cool, but overall I like the difficulty to be more on the modern side. Interesting. So I I was really surprised to learn that you liked philosophy, Zoe, because when we were initially talking, it seemed like your personality wasn't very well suited to being philosophical. Jevil, just so you know, Zoe and I, we like to talk about personality type, psychology a lot. So if you're ever like confused by our terminology, please let us know and I'll try to dummyify it for you. But like from what I had heard about what your initial type was, that's one of the types that likes philosophy the least, up there with mine, because their eighth function is just like, oh my gosh, how do you see deeper than the surface? This is, I mean, I'm getting a headache just thinking about it, but it just seemed off. So I'm glad that you, at least now you have the fourth function, which is better than eighth, but it's still surprising. So I'm wondering if that's just, is that a personal thing that's specifically you, or do you think you're just very well developed? Let's see. What are you saying here, Jubble? Yeah, I don't really like I like some puzzle games, like Professor Layton. I'm a huge fan of Professor Layton. Not all of his games, but I really like his crossover with Ace Attorney. And I really like Tetris. I've actually scored second place in Tetris 99. Puzzle action adventure games, I think that would probably include Evergate, if I'm not mistaken. I played a little bit of Portal, but it hasn't come to a Nintendo system. So we'll have to see about that. Platformers, yeah, it depends on the platformer. I like those too. That's a really cool range, Jevil. I really appreciate how you play a lot of games. Well, yes, I suppose. I mean, I think pretty much every type, to some degree, asks the question of why is this in some form or another. Some are just, I guess, have different priorities as far as how much they ask why. Like, I think the types that are more bossy and like hard hitting, they're probably more so going to be, I guess, enforcing as opposed to thinking. Welcome back, JP. I was just talking about you the other day, saying that I was really, really happy with how loyal you are to my channel. And yes, alleluia indeed. It's been a long time since we could say that. Tower defense games, yeah, I'm terrible at tower defense. I'd probably end up prioritizing the wrong people to shoot. I might give it a try one of these days, but probably anything but Plants vs. Zombies because I'm kind of boycotting EA at the moment. They're just such a despicable company. I don't really like their practices at all. So, JP, what are your plans for Easter? Or are you just coming here while you're waiting for it to be in the evening? Because most of my plans are going to be after dinner time. So I figured stream now, family later. Hopefully after the stream I can at least get a little bit of shut eye so that I have enough energy to be able to handle my family. Because they can be a little bit loud sometimes, which is not always a bad thing, but it can get a little bit overwhelming if there's too much of it. Now, I have played the coin shooter in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which is kind of a tower defense, so I guess that's the closest thing. I don't think they actually announced a Steve amiibo yet, Jevil, so you'll have to hold out on that one, but I would certainly buy it. I think, admittedly, I'm not a Minecraft fan, but I do like to get as many unique amiibos as possible. Because, for example, even if you look at my shelf behind here, I've got Simon and Richter, and I've only played one Castlevania game, so I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I like having a variety of amiibos because back in the Wii U and 3DS days, they could be used for so many different things. Like in Yoshi's Woolly World, you could get like a different Yoshi for every amiibo, and it was so cool to see like a Sonic amiibo or even Ike from Path of Radiance. You all know that I'm a huge fan of Path of Radiance, so to have a Yoshi, it was mind blowing. Probably one of the best usages of amiibo I've ever seen. So Zoe, just curious, I might be thinking of someone else. I think I am thinking of someone else. So, what is your experience with video games, Zoe? Because I think you and I do talk about psychology a lot, but we don't really talk about gaming. So, like, what kind of games do you play if you play at all? Yeah, I had an early breakfast, so I ended up actually eating lunch at a decent time, but more or less most of my meals are brunch. I mean, I don't doubt that they could do that. But according to Sakurai, apparently he couldn't get all of his wishes because they can't make a young Zelda amiibo to match her updated design. There is still a Toon Zelda amiibo if you know where to look. Oh, wow, you played Beat Saber? That's so cool. I would love to play Beat Saber, but it hasn't come to a Nintendo system. But I've heard a lot about it, and I really want to get into that. Stardew Valley, I've been told that it's a good game, but one thing that I don't like about Animal Crossing is that it's addicting at first, but because it doesn't have an official ending, the fact that I have to keep playing it infinitely just it kind of it kind of saps the fun out of it after a while. And I think games like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, where yes, it has a lot of content, and yes, it keeps updating, but it does have a definitive endpoint. And if you decide that you're done playing it after that endpoint, the game's not going to penalize you for it. And that's why I think I prefer that approach over the we're going to yell at you if you abandon your visitors too much. I definitely get why people would like relaxing games, but for me personally, I don't really like relaxing games just because I feel like if I really wanted to relax, I'd probably just lay in my bed. Like video games, I feel like they're more stressful than relaxing. I'm definitely hoping for amiibos for every fighter, Jevil, because I can only imagine how they'll be able to fit Sephiroth's long sword in an amiibo case. That would be something. I haven't even heard of Richie's Plank, JP. You'll have to tell both of us about it. And Guitar Hero, I used to be a huge fan of Guitar Hero, but then my brother ended up being so obsessed with Guitar Hero that now he can beat every official song on expert difficulty, with the exception of some of the DLC. But I think that's also just because he didn't really get what DLC was back then, because he had them on the Wii. The Wii wasn't exactly known for its DLC, so I think he kind of just was like, too technically confusing. But every song that's on the discs, he beat on expert. And now he has all of our Guitar Hero guitars, but it was fun while it lasted. And I had a couple of opportunities where we actually did get a 4-player band, which was hilarious and fun. And the only song to date where I can beat every instrument on expert is Living on a Prayer. That means, for those of you that don't know what Guitar Hero is, I can do it on guitar, bass, drums, and microphone, all on expert. Yeah, exercise games are really hit or miss with me just because I feel like a lot of the stuff that you use to exercise in video games uses up a lot of batteries. So if there is a way to like keep something consistently charged, like maybe if say the Switch balance board, if there's ever such a thing, let you plug it in instead of relying on batteries, then maybe I would get into Wii Fit a lot more. But as it is, it ate up all my batteries, and now it's just like, why even bother? I mean, I would only buy 2 different Minecraft amiibos if they had different functionalities, because originally I only bought male coring because I thought that's all I need. But then Three Houses came out and gives you something different for both male and female corin. So I thought, well, I guess I'll have to invest in the female because I really want every music track. So it really all depends on if they're going to go that route. Yeah, I really like rhythm games, Zoe. I played a little bit of the rhythm expansion in Ring Fit Adventure, which had Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild music, which was great. I loved Guitar Hero back in the day. I love Dance Dance Revolution. I'm not as good as it as I used to be, but I used to be the king of DDR. I could get 100% on Speed over Beethoven, and I spent $10 worth of quarters at the arcade and ended up hyperventilating so much that the people at the arcade had to drag me off and give me a drink of water and say, like, okay, we appreciate your business. We appreciate your business, but you should at least have some moderation. Oh, wow. That actually sounds like so much fun, JP. If you find out that that's on the Switch, let me know, because I'm not afraid of heights, and I really want to try that. I honestly, for me, I don't really care which fighter gets announced as long as they have good music and good spirits and a good stage. Because I already got Banjo and Kazooie, and those were like, in case you guys couldn't tell, they were my number one pick, even back in the Wii U and 3DS days. And the fact that they exist, it's like, you know what? If Sakurai gives us lousy characters from now on, I'm still going to be happy that Banjo got in. So for now, it's just like let's just see what spirits and songs. DDR is the kind of game where if you play it in the arcade, it's really fun, but playing it at home is really annoying because the dance pads are so temperamental. Like I had the Mario version of Dance Dance Revolution back on the GameCube, and that was so much fun while it lasted. The key word is while it lasted because the dance pad broke after I think we only had it for like 4 months. I was able to beat the very first song on the hardest difficulty, but just barely. That's definitely an underappreciated Mario game. You'd be surprised how many people were like, Mario did DDR? Oh, not only did Mario do DDR, but in one of the boss battles, you can see Bowser busting some moves, which is both disturbing and amazing at the same time. And it's probably also stupidly expensive if you want to get it. So hopefully they do like a DDR Mario Mix Switch edition sometime because more people need to know about that game. Mm. DDR is also the kind of game where you really have to be good with your feet to play it. So if you're the type that has good hand-eye coordination, but you don't have good leg strength, you're probably not gonna like DDR. Oh, that's a good point, Jevil, because yeah, Nintendo did publish the first two Banjo games. And I think they published the third, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I do think Banjo and Kazooie were deserving of a spot even back in Smash 64. I think Brawl was the first game where I really started envisioning what a sequel would look like. And when I was like thinking about how Banjo and Kazooie would be implemented, they actually managed to nail it almost exactly like how I imagined it. Like the final Smash was different. I thought they would do the Beak Buster or the Beak Bomb, but I think I like the Ginginator a lot better because that is how they dealt the final blow to Gruntilda in their first game. So it's a nice, unexpected callback. So Zoe, do you have a Nintendo Switch? Because if you do, I have a recommendation for you that it's obviously not as cool as Beat Saber, but you might find it a close second. Well, if you ever are in the mood for exercising with your roommate, then there's a game called Fitness Boxing. And it's where you punch the Joy-Cons to the rhythm of popular songs. Admittedly, the songs aren't very good, but the trainers do a good job of telling you when to punch. And the motion sensing is so generous that you can often just go like, even if they're telling you to do like a swipe, and it should be fairly accurate. I personally didn't like the game very much, but I at least liked that it gave you a good workout. Yeah, and they made a sequel too, so you might want to try that as well. Um, I don't see Crash being important to Mario because a lot of his commercials are actually taking a microphone and yelling at Nintendo that he was actually superior. But we also we got a couple of Crash games on the Switch. Like we had Wrath of Cortex on the GameCube. And then we had the GBA games and Mind Over Mutant came along, but apart from that, like you said, he was primarily just be he was primarily a rival. But then again, Sonic was a rival, so by that logic, Sonic should be able to get in as well. Another rhythm game that might be really hard to find, but is definitely worth it would be Ring Fit Adventure because they added a free update where you can actually dance to popular Nintendo songs. And they also added an update where you can get rid of the battles and just exercise. So if you manage to get your hands on a Ring Fit set, that's another good exercise game for the Switch. Oh, that's cool, JP. Oh, it's always good to hear from him. Oh, when you say he's working on something right now, any chance it could be a future YouTube video? Because that would be cool to see what he's up to. Yeah, they don't have too many songs, but they have a Breath of the Wild medley, a Splatoon 2 medley, Jump Up Superstar, Mario's theme, and a Wii Fit medley, I think are the five that they have. So, and you have multiple difficulties, and it's all like straight from the original games. None of them are remixes. I'm honestly baffled that they had Breath of the Wild music in there, but it works good enough. Yeah, Insane Trilogy was really hard. I didn't end up beating it because I don't really have the patience for those kinds of retro platformers, but I did play Crash Bandicoot a lot on the PlayStation. Yes, I'm old. And I remember at the time thinking like, wow, this is really good. This is really good animation for its time. And just think how far we've come since then. I'm really excited to see what you're working on, JP. So if either of you are following me on Twitter, then you can feel free to send me a link. If you're not following me on Twitter, then Well, YouTube tends to think that when you send a link that it's spam at first. So if I don't see your links right away, it's because YouTube didn't tell me that you sent it. So I know, Zoe, you tried to send me a link the other day, and I didn't get it until 3 days later. And that's because YouTube automatically is against links. So if you guys ever think that I'm ignoring you or not getting around to your comments, I never try to deliberately ignore people. So you can just assume it's some kind of technical difficulties. In fact, I hate ignoring people so much that one of my biggest concerns with my current friend circle is when they wait like forever to respond to like a text or a voicemail or a call. So I prefer getting back to people as soon as possible, which is why if I don't get back to people as soon as possible, there's usually a very, very, very good reason. Like maybe I'm on a week-long mission trip, or maybe there's a power outage. It usually has to be something pretty severe, not just, oh, my bad, I forgot. Like, I don't really do that. I hardly forget anything. If I do, I must be having a really bad day. I never actually played Crash of the Titans, but I heard it was pretty bad. Yeah, I only played, I think I played a little bit of Wrath of Cortex, and I played Crash 1 on the PlayStation. I never played Crash 3, though. And then I also rented Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled for the Switch, which was all right, but I don't know. I think I prefer Mario Kart. All right, guys, I've got this much water left, and my voice is starting to get a little bit sore, so I'm going to get a little bit of a breather, so feel free to type a little bit more now that I need to catch my breath. I want to try to stream for at least an hour and a half, so I'm going to calm down a bit. Hmm. Okay, I think I'm good. Oh, I'm glad you noticed, Zoe, because I was actually thinking about that too. This painting was given to me by my friend Kara. You guys have probably seen her in several videos. She's like one of my best friends ever, which is amazing because her personality is totally the opposite of mine. So I'm surprised we got along so well. But she gave it to me as a birthday present. And what's also cool that shows that we were really meant to be good friends is that I was actually dating someone at the time that she gave me the present. And because we had such a good understanding with each other, she still gave me that as a friendship token. And now the tables have turned, and now she's the one engaged, and I'm single. So I think that's okay because for the longest time, I thought she would never date anyone. So I'm glad she's found someone that she's willing to spend the rest of her life with. But she and I are still amazing friends. We're actually planning a hangout this month with our other friends. And then next month, we're planning on having a one-on-one hangout. So I'm really glad that she's not an exclusivist. I've never played Sly Cooper, but I saw my friend playing it. If it's anything like Banjo-Kazooie, I would be excited to give it a try if it came to the Switch. Excuse me. Yeah, she painted it herself. I didn't even know she was an artist until I saw that painting, so that was another big surprise for me. Now, what I like to think, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but if you look at the bottom of the painting, it's entirely red. And there's, excuse me, there's a scene in my novel where everything turns red. Now, I won't tell you what happened in case I eventually make it available in some form, but I'd like to think maybe she was thinking about that part of my novel, and that's why she painted the whole thing red. Or maybe there's some surreal hidden meaning to it. I'm not really sure. She is much more of a big picture abstract thinker than me. So I don't know. Maybe she thought that each color represented what she thought about our friendship. I don't know. I just like it because it's pretty. I don't try to look at the meaning of it. I don't try to think what was the point of it. I just say it's beautiful. I like it. Who cares what it means? I actually wrote 4 novels, Zoe, but none of them are published. Well, it's kind of a long story, but let me see if I can shorten it. Basically, I finished all 4 of my novels, and I mean, admittedly, I could go back and change a few things here and there, but I think like the actual story details are finalized. I just have to make sure it doesn't seem like a young person wrote it because I think I was 17 when I started writing. And, I've learned a lot since then. So I'd want the characters to be more accurate to reality. But the problem is that I had some really radical ideas that at the time weren't really explored. I mean, nowadays, there's so much that we never even thought was possible back then. But now that such things have happened, I'm afraid of releasing it in case people get the wrong idea of what I'm trying to say. Because my idea was I just want to make cool fiction. I want to amaze people and I want to try to do something that's never been done. But nowadays, you can even just sneeze and people will think it's a political agenda. So I think at this point it's better that I just have the novels and share them with people that I really trust and can say like I'm not intending to be political. I'm not forcing my views on you guys. I'm just writing a cool book first and foremost. Let's see what you're saying, Jevil. Yeah, Nuts and Bolts is nothing like the regular banjo games. I feel like Nuts and Bolts is kind of its own game altogether that just slaps Banjo and Kazooie on it. Well, that's great that you have Rare Replay, because I would love to have Rare Replay, but it's on the Xbox. But at least I still have Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie on the Nintendo 64, so I can always play them the traditional Nintendo way if I'm ever desperate. Not only did I write a novel, Zoe, but I also have a walkthrough for all 3 of the Zero Escape games, and I have a novelization of the 3rd one. So if you ever wanted to get into the Zero Escape series without playing the games, you can always let me know and I can send you a copy. My novelization is actually free. I mean, technically my walkthroughs are too, but they haven't been officially released. But my novelization has been released, and it's free to anyone who wants it. The official, well, I shouldn't say official because I didn't get permission from the creator, but about 90% of it is actually like series lore or based on director interviews. Only about 10% was my own imagination. Jevil, I bet you would be ecstatic to read it. It's also impressive how many projects I didn't finish that I just have somewhere on my computer. Alrighty, well, if you don't, that's totally okay, JP, because I know my streams are always sporadically done, but thank you for sticking around for as long as you did. I hope you have a wonderful Easter season. But the good news about a lot of my unfinished projects is that I usually incorporate them into another project. Like, for example, there were several characters that didn't make it into my novels that were in rough draft, so I ended up putting them in my 4th novel instead. Yeah, the thing about Zero Escape is that there's a lot of stuff that didn't make it into the games because Chunsoft didn't have the budget to have everything in there. But like in interviews and behind the scenes and some of the secret files, the director would clarify some things. So that's how I'm able to know the series so well is by looking at these director interviews where the director says like, yeah, this is what I intended, but it couldn't work out because we didn't have the budget or something like that. And also just like you've only played 99 once. I've played it more like 7 or 8 times. So when you've seen something over and over again, it's kind of like if you've ever seen the movie Groundhog Day, where Phil is so stuck in the eternal time loop that he can like just point to the littlest thing and say like this is going to happen. So because I've played these games so much, I see everything and I can connect the dots more. Now, I don't want to spoil anything for people in here that haven't played the Zero Escape games, but let's just say there are so many little one-liners in Virtue's Last Reward that don't seem like they mean anything at a first playthrough, and then when you go back with the context of the whole series, it's like, oh wow, they were hinting at it way back then. So, so Zoe, just curious, what kind of stuff do you like reading about? Yeah, I actually saw that movie. Assuming I'm not mistaking it with another movie, I believe it's about a guy who has a memory disorder, so he has to write things down on his arms and legs so that he doesn't forget them during the memory loss. I really liked that movie a lot. I thought it was a cool way of filming it, and I think the actor did a good job of looking like he really did lose his memory. Realistic fiction. So you mean like say historical fiction where like they might say this is based on World War One, but it's not technically a true story? Or do you mean like fiction that's like say a romance novel that takes place in the 21st? Oh, young adult fiction. That makes sense. I've tried dabbling in romance novels, but I don't know. My proofreaders never really caught on as much as they did with my fiction books. Because, like, I tried writing a book called The Practicality of Love, and I may actually go back and rewrite it eventually. But basically, the gist of it was that it was actually a retelling of when I first fell in love, but with the gender roles swapped. So the main character was supposed to be like a female version of me, and her love interest was supposed to be a male version of the first girl I fell in love with. The problem was that I hadn't actually been in a relationship yet at the time that I wrote it, and so there was a lot of stuff that I got wrong. And so I'm hoping that now that I have been in a relationship, technically 2, but the second one only lasted 4 days, now I can say like, "Yeah, let me make sure I get these details right." But what I really liked about that book was that every single character I named after someone that came on the mission trip with me. And I also wanted it to be where the main character actually thought really hard about, like, even though I'm attracted to this person, should I pursue it? And would that be God's will? And there was also like a lot of references to mission trips and retreats I've been on. Of course, a lot of people say that I excessively talk about my mission trips and retreats. So I think it depends on the person because there's some people that say, Paul, I could listen to your stories all day. And there's some that's just like, not another mission trip story, Paul. So it really all depends on the person. But if you guys want to hear them, fair warning, I could talk your ears off if my throat allows me to. But yeah, I plan on doing like mission trip testimonials, like in actual pre-made videos as opposed to these live streams relatively soon. In fact, I may actually film one after we're done with this live stream, just like, hey, I'm going to talk about Mission Trip. Because I feel like, how do I word this? I'd like people to be able to know the amazing stories that happened to me without having to dig through a lot of live streams. Because my live streams are long and not always the most put together. Whereas if I can do an actual content video, I could legitimately say, like, here is what happened in 2010, and I'm going to present it totally accurately. Why, thank you, Jevil. You might not like why I'm wearing the glove. It's because I have warts. And I'm about to get them treated, so you guys don't have to worry too much. I just have to find a good time to go to urgent care, and they'll be able to take care of it. But as of right now, I wear the gloves so that I don't try to, like, force them off or get anyone else contagious. But at least the right hand is totally fine for now, so that's good. So, just curious, if you guys aren't totally bored out of your mind right now, did you want to hear one of my crazy mission trip stories? I mean, I have joked that my sister is a witch at times, but I think the real reason I got it was because I like going to public pools. So I probably ended up touching a few contaminated surfaces here and there. So before I begin my mission trip stories, I just want to know, well, Jevil, I know you haven't heard any, but Zoe, I know you've heard a couple. So could you tell me what mission trip stories you do remember me telling? And then I'll see if I can tell you a new one. Because I've been on 8 different mission trips and probably like over 12 different conferences and probably at least like 20 retreats. So there's definitely a lot of stories there, and I might end up repeating them if I'm not clarified which ones I haven't already said. Okay, I guess I'll get started then. Is that okay with you, Jevil, if I talk about mission trip stories? Because I actually like talking about the mission trip even more than I like talking about Zero Escape, and that's saying something. Alrighty then. So one of my I'll save that one for another stream because I really want to do this justice. So Tiki, welcome back. So she changes her name a lot, but I knew her first as Tiki. So I guess if you guys want to call her Yawa, that's up to her, I guess. But welcome back, Tiki. I was actually just about to tell these guys one of my stories about the mission trip. Is that okay with you, or was there something else you wanted to talk about first? Because I've been on 8 different mission trips, and my stories are so incredible that you wouldn't even believe most of them are true stories. Thankfully, for a lot of them, I have either photographic proof or I have the signatures of the people involved. So I usually have some way of proving that it happened. Soft or Kai, huh? Okay, sure. I'll keep that in mind. All right then. So, did you want to hear a mission trip story, or would that be too boring for you? Yeah, that is true. Well, I guess I better get started then. Yeah, I only have this much. I may end up getting a refill if people join the stream late, because I definitely don't want people to like just get here and be like, Paul, I got here, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. So I might just end up doing a BRB if I run out. So feel free to stop me if you're bored at any time. But um, I'll tell you guys. I'll tell you guys the story about the time that God didn't answer my prayer. And it was such an amazing experience. So what happened was, so for a bit of context about what happened before that trip. So in 2009, I was basically treated really badly by the girls in my youth group. And it was getting to the point where, oh, thank you, Jebel. My sister got it for me because she knows I like Zelda. They had, I wouldn't say they were bullying. They just didn't always understand like the way that I talked and the way that I presented information. It was always more or less just sort of like a Paul, why are you treating us so badly? When I was actually trying to treat them nice. And then I had also been abused in the past by females. And so it was getting to the point where, and of course, at the time, I also thought I was asexual, so that didn't help. So going into this mission trip, I was, of course, terrified out of my mind because I was like, oh dear, mission trips are usually mostly females, and I do not know how to talk to these people. So Tuesday night came, and it was almost dinner time. I wanted to get there super early so that one, I could have my seat, and two, because I knew that people didn't go into the dining hall until it was actually dinner time because they would rather either sleep, shower, or talk with their friends. I said, okay, this will be a nice place to be quiet. No one will be able to bother me. It's indoors, so it's air conditioned. So I sat down, and I'll never forget the scenery. I was looking straight at this beautiful tree that had green leaves on it. And as hard as it can be for you guys to imagine it, I was actually crying. And I just said, you know what, God? And I'm not saying it in exact words, but to paraphrase, I basically just said, you know what, God, I have had good times, don't get me wrong, but man, these females are treating me like trash. And I just want to say, I think I'm all done. And I just wish that you would just take them all away. I'm sick and tired of it. Get them out of my life. 45 minutes later, these two girls came over and they saw that I was sitting alone. So they said, hey, can we join you? So I said, I suppose. So then they got like really polite and were just like, so tell me about yourself. What kind of things do you like to do? And I'm like, say what? Say what? Since when are people that interested in my interests? So I ended up talking about my book and I ended up talking about my novels in progress, and they were really fascinated and they said stuff like, yeah, we'll see you around, Paul. So then I said, okay, well, that's cool. So then I picked up my tray and I walked over to the trash can and I'm like, thought I just prayed to take them all away. Well, whatever. So then as I was walking out the door, then two more girls stopped me. And one of them said, you know what, Paul, I've been observing everything you had to say during the camp. And I just want to say that it's my turn to talk on the stage tonight about how we saw God on this trip. And I'm going to say I saw God in you, Paul. So I said, oh, wow, that's so nice of you. Thank you for that. So then I'm heading back towards the retreat center where we were staying. And this whole thing just keeps up where like no matter where I walked, some kind of female would like come up to me in some form. Like one would say like, hey Paul, it's you. Can I give you a hug? Another was even like I had, a towel around my shoulder and I was walking towards the showers and one of the females was like, Paul, please give me a hug. And then another time a guy came and he just said, hey, this is the dorm where the famous Paul is, right? Because all the girls are talking about you and how nice you've been to them and how like everyone just wants to get to know you. So I just said, what the heck? Why am I surrounded by females all of a sudden? And then of course the amazing Four Corners story happened, but you guys have heard that 1,000 times already. So basically you could say that at that point in my life, that was the point where I said, okay, I take it back. Girls are actually very awesome, and I I'm not going to be against them. And so ever since then, I've really liked hanging around females. And 2 years later was when I first fell in love. 2017 was when I had my first girlfriend. And so God chose not to answer my prayer, and it ended up changing my life. So, moral of the story, guys, let me put this in the chat in case someone comes late. Moral of the story, God can say no to prayers, and that can still help you. So just in case you pray for something and God doesn't answer it, that might be his way of answering it. Because just imagine if God had said yes, like I wouldn't have half of my friends. I wouldn't have a lot of you guys. I wouldn't have Pegasus. I wouldn't have I'd probably say good riddance to this bird. You got it. You got it. You Kai, was it, right? I got to get used to that new name. I hope you'll forgive me while I adjust, but yes, you got it. God totally turned the tables around. And not only that, but 2 years after that conference, I discovered that I wasn't asexual. I was actually heterosexual, but what happened was I had I had thought that, how do I put this in G-rated terms? I was thinking too hard about the practicality of relationships at that time in my life. I was still attracted to females, but I didn't think I had the mental capacity to want to be in a relationship. 2 years later, that all changed. And so then I realized, like, yeah, I think I was just telling myself what I wanted to hear. So God really worked in mysterious ways. And if you think that story is cool, the story of how God miraculously healed my back and shoulders in 2018 was even cooler. Now I made a whole video about that, and there's even like videos. I made a video where I talked about my experience, but someone in the audience was also filming when I gave a talk about it, and they saw me giving 10 push-ups on the stage, when at that point I could barely do 2. And that was a way of proving that God really had healed me, because the people in my parish group knew that I had really bad back troubles and shoulder problems, and they probably also knew that I could barely even lift up a container full of water bottles. And so to see me doing push-ups, I think a lot of them were just like, what? What the heck happened to you, Paul? Well, miracles what happened, that's what. Mm. So, do you guys want to hear more mission trip stories, or was there something else you wanted to talk about? Because I've got so many more, but if you say yes, then I would appreciate it if you would clarify what type of story you want to hear, because that was one of the more serious ones, but we also have sad stories. Oh, yeah, thanks for dropping by, Zoe. I'm glad you could show up for as long as you did. I have sad stories. Some stories are so depressing, you'd probably wonder how I'm still alive right now. I've got touching stories. Um, I've got funny stories. I've got really hilarious stories. And I've also got just miscellaneous details, because I'm a very detail-oriented person, and I like paying attention to external surroundings, and I like paying attention to stuff like um I like I like paying attention to the little details, like what the color of the carpet was and what wall decorations are on the ceiling. So if you ever want those little things, ah, well, I am a male, so he, him, his. That's what I've been ever since birth. I don't know why Pegasus sometimes says they. Maybe it's because she wants to be politically correct, but if my birth certificate is anything to go by, I don't think I could be a girl. I know I can't be. I just flubbed that line. But yes, just continue calling me Paul. Oh, yes, not a problem. Do whatever you need to do. Yeah, I don't really like getting into gender politics too much on my YouTube channel, but considering that I'm an old man, we didn't really have I know I look like a girl, but I swear I'm not. But that would be R-rated if I showed you the proof, so just take my word for it. But yeah, because I'm an old man, we didn't really have gender pronouns when I was a kid. Like, basically, you were told if you have that down there, you're a boy, and if you don't, you're a girl. Like, that was the end of the discussion. There was really nothing else. It wasn't even it didn't even cross our minds that you could do that. And if you did do something like that, like say yes sir to a woman, there would usually be this understanding of like, oh, you're just being funny, right? So if it seems like I'm super ignorant about gender politics and pronouns, it's because I am. I'm old. And back when I was a child, we were never taught about any of that. No one thought about it. I guess you could say it's kind of like how Jevil, you had never heard of Zero Escape until just last year, when it's technically been around since 2009. In the same way, we had never heard of people that could have been different genders or sexualities. I mean, there were gay people, but it was a pretty minority group of people. But there were no transgender people. There were no. I don't think bisexuality existed either. If it did, people just didn't announce it. And I don't even think the term LGBT even existed back then. It was just either you were gay or you weren't gay, were like the two that we heard of. But even if you were gay, you didn't think that you were actually another gender than you were. So that's my experience growing up. If you guys want to inform me of all of it, totally. But that's how I've always lived. So take it for what it is, I guess. No, that's actually the thing is, I think I think it really from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, some trans people might actually think that they're trans, but it's actually based on what's going on inside their brain and what their emotions are telling them. So it might just be a state of mind as opposed to an actual genetic trait. So for example, there might be some people that like have the temptation of like, oh my gosh. Like for example, when people cut their hair, a lot of times they'll like instinctively reach up and try to stroke their hair, but the hair doesn't exist. So they call it ghost hair. Or you've got people like my dad's friend Al. He had to get his legs removed because he had such bad cancer. And during the night when he was in the hospital, he woke up screaming, and the nurses ran in and they were like, "What's the matter?" He's like, "My legs are killing me." They're like, "You have no legs. How can you have painful legs if they're killing you?" So in that case, he's literally panicking about legs that he no longer has. So, and again, I could be wrong, but I think that's what's happening in these cases. Is these people are having these feelings and thoughts that don't technically exist, but because they're driven more by emotions than reason and logic, it leads to them making these assumptions and acting through with them. Anyway, Kai, I totally forgot to ask you how your day is going and if you're doing anything special for Easter. Like, what are your epic plans for today? Yeah, yeah, that is true. But a couple of things I actually have been paying attention lately to other things that constitute, I guess, what you would call a male or female general build. Yeah, neither could I, but you'll probably be glad to hear why I didn't go to church today. It was because my niece was just born this morning. And so as a result, um, let's just say there was a lack of sleep. And so we ended up watching it live streamed on TV. But yeah, I now have two nieces. One of them is named Cecilia Joy, and the other is named Estelle Marie. And so far, they're both polar opposites. So it looks like Cecilia is going to be the talker, and Estelle will be the listener. So, what a great cousin relationship those two will have. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So I've been studying a lot about um, like how to tell just by someone's face if they have a general male or female build. Like, for example, the men's Adam's apples are usually very sharp, whereas the females are more of evenly thinned out, like kind of like how my neck is really like flatter, but like it still has a little bit of muscle. That's more of like how the female Adam's apple is. Also, if you look at a male's hair, now obviously every man has a different hairline, but usually like men's hair will sort of like go back a little bit, whereas females will have like a straight line all the way across. I think the reason why a lot of boys are dubbed by girls is because generally speaking, girls have higher pitched voices. And so they probably don't want the male voice actors to strain their vocal cords too much. You have autism, huh? That's really cool. Well, if you ever want to talk more about autism, I happen to know a whole lot about the spectrum. So if you ever need tips on how to recover, you can just let me know. Because I actually did public speeches all about autism for a good portion of my adult life. Um, Now, I don't know if this works for everyone, but I found that when I talk to girls, I think the most important thing is asking them what are their boundaries. And then once you establish that, then basically they're telling you the rules about what makes them happy and what doesn't. And so if they're the type that's just like, don't worry about boundaries, just treat me like anyone else, then you can feel more fair. Or if they say like, don't hug me, don't call me on the phone, then you can know like, okay, they're a bit more reserved. So you can get these generalized thought patterns. Or if they say, don't even call me a girl, just call me a person, then you get more of the okay, so they're the controlling type a bit more. So by starting out by asking, what is it that you like? What is it that makes you uncomfortable? Because every girl is different. Every girl has their own preferences. There are some girls that love hugs, some that hate them. Of course, this goes for guys too, but I'm speaking from someone who I'm speaking from someone who had like maybe one girl in his entire classroom. And so I didn't know how to talk to girls for so many years. Now it's just second nature to me. Because now I actually have more female friends than I do male, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, I would say autism is more commonly known. I think a lot of people nowadays are saying that they have autism when before they might have just said they had social anxiety or bipolar or something like that. I think usually the best way to tell if someone has autism over those other disorders is that autism is a social neurological disorder. So it's primarily going to be affecting the part of the brain that handles communication and processing like social skills. So most people have this thing called intuition where they can kind of like get a read on the situation and they can like map out like okay, I'm detecting really bad vibes here and I'm thinking maybe I might have crossed a line. Autistic people generally don't have that. That part of their brain is just gone. So they might say something super rude or inappropriate and not realize it because that part of their brain is wired differently. To make up for it, people on the autism spectrum usually have other talents. It's usually called savant talents that make them almost kind of like superhumans. So a lot of people on the spectrum might have like a photographic memory, or um, they might be able to get around with their eyes closed, or they might be able to. In the case of one autistic boy, he was able to roll around in the snow while wearing nothing but underwear. So in some cases, their senses can actually be the other way around. Yeah, I prefer saying Asperger's syndrome for the high functioning autism because what separates high functioning autism from low functioning is yes, autism is a social neurological disorder, but for the lower functioning folks, it affects their ability to talk at all. So if you're on the lowest end of the spectrum, you usually can't talk at all, or you only like talk in like one or two words. Then there's middle functioning where they can sort of talk, but they can't like hold a conversation, or they might like only be able to say certain phrases, or they'd say phrases out of context. Then you've got the high functioning autism, which is more or less they can talk like any other person. They just might not always have the most social grace. So they can carry on a conversation, they can speak full sentences, they can type. They might do stuff like not cry when everyone else is crying because they don't get that something sad just happened, or they might like say, "Why are you so fat?" when nowadays that's considered rude and TMI, but for the most part, it's really just like they still have that slowdown in the social senses, and they still sometimes have like heightened attuned senses, but at the same time they don't have the vocabulary delay. So in terms of like progressive speech, they can talk just fine. That's basically the simplest explanation is they can talk totally fine. They just might not always know what's the most appropriate thing to say in the moment, but they're still capable of talking. Does that make sense? Oh, I am so sorry, Kai. I guess my question to you, if you're wondering what to say, is actually I have two things to say to you. So first, what is your experience with learning about the autism spectrum? And second, on my Twitter page, I actually made an entire thread for role playing. So if you wanted to role play some more, I suggest you search for that. I think it's the second post I made. Just go on my page and find the one that says, if you like role playing as Danganronpa, Once Upon a Time, or Zero Escape characters, here's the thread for you. So if you're ever feeling bored and just want to start acting like Mekon, just look at my Twitter page. That can be totally doable. I've actually never seen Phineas and Ferb, Jubble, so I'm afraid I don't know what example you're referring to. Now, as far as like things like bipolar, ADHD, those are more in the realm of like mental disorders. So, and I know social neurological also involves the brain, but bipolar literally changes the way that how do I word it in layman's terms? Like, autism is more of like an overall diagnosis, like overall you have difficulty talking, whereas with bipolar it tends to like have phases and like you have extreme highs and extreme lows. So like a person on the autism spectrum is going to be consistently struggling with socializing, whereas a person with bipolar might have a good day one day and a bad day another. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything that you would like to talk about? Because I want to make sure that everyone is included in my streams. Why, thank you, Jevil. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky too. I might actually end pretty soon anyway, just because I'm out of water. But I'll go for a little bit longer just in case there's a latecomer. If there's not in the next few minutes, I probably will end it. Not because of anything you guys said or lack of anything you guys are saying. It's just that I don't want to completely kill my voice. Oh wow, is it almost that time? Wow, I've been talking for a while. Oh yes, all the time. Especially when I pick up the phone or when I'm calling somewhere. Somehow they don't get the hint that Paul is a masculine name. Like I say, "Hello, this is Paul," and somehow they still think it's funny. Okay, we can talk about Genshin. Not that I know much about it, but I'd like to hear about it. Do you happen to know if Genshin is on the Switch? Because from what I've heard, Genshin is like Breath of the Wild, and if it's like Breath of the Wild, then I'm legitimately curious. For future references, guys, and maybe I'll put this in the chat just to make sure if newcomers come. I would consider myself an information gatherer first, enforcer later. So if you guys ever want to talk about something that I don't know about, I mean, that's totally okay by me. Why, thank you. Does that mean you have to get going, Jevil, or was that just something you wanted to say? I mean, there are certain subjects that I like more than others, but um, I don't mind talking about video games that I don't normally like. Let's see. Yeah, me too. Let's see. They did? Oh. Oh, that stinks. If they do end up saying something about it on the Switch, I hope you will. I guess the best you can do for now is maybe if you either tag me in a post on Twitter if you see it again, or if you just mention it to me the next time you're in a stream. It doesn't have to be my stream. It could also be a Pegasus stream. Just say like, "Yo, Paul, Genshin for Switch," and I'm really gonna try it. Oh, that's good, Jevil. Have you played Genshin by any chance? So, what exactly? How would you say Genshin is both similar and different from Breath of the Wild? Oh, thank you, Jevil. I have quite a variety of content on my channel, so um, if you ever are just like, man, some of these videos just make no sense, just feel free to look at the playlist because I have everything categorized. So if you're more of like a gamer, just look at my gaming reviews. If you like personality types, look at that playlist. Like I have something for just about everyone. Fighting, huh? Okay. So hmm. Oh, would you say it's more like The Witcher 3? Because I did play Witcher 3, so is it similar to that game style? Yes, I played Kirby, but I have a very love-hate relationship with him. Like, most Kirby games I don't like, but I do like a few, but most of them I don't, and I talked about this in my Kirby 64 re-review, but he generally doesn't have very good momentum, and that's why he doesn't make for a good platforming character, in my opinion. How can you play an open world game on your phone? Like, that just blows my mind at what phones are capable of now. Like, when I first saw my sister having a smartphone, and she was like, "Yeah, let me just check my Facebook on it." I'm like, "You can check Facebook on a phone?" Because when I was a kid, we had, uh we had phones that couldn't even text, so the fact that you can even use a GPS on the phone, it's yeah, that's something else. I mean, even nowadays, I still have this old-fashioned phone right here, so you gotta love flip phones. So, what about the music of Genshin? Is it more atmospheric like Breath of the Wild, or would you say it's more like grand and orchestral? Actually, if you want to just type that thought right now, I'm gonna go refill my water because now you've intrigued me. So I'm just gonna put the camera down for now because I don't know how to do a BRB graphic, but feel free to type out your response to Genshin and I'll get to your responses in a moment. So, quick water break. Alrighty. I am back. That I mean, I do really like orchestral music. So if it like uses a lot of live instruments, that's definitely going to be something that will really hook me. Because that's why I really like Three Houses, and that's why I really like whatchamacallit. I really like Evergate. That also has live music. Breath of the Wild has a few orchestra pieces too, so it's not entirely pianos. It's just you have to sort of get to the event modes to get there. Also, Kai, did you see my Banjo and Kazooie amiibo yet? Because, they're my favorite character in Smash. Violins are perfect. So I think you've officially sold me. Yeah, if you hear anything more about that coming to Switch, I am legitimately curious now. I would really love to give it a try. So, do you get to make your own main character, or is it preset like Link is in Breath of the Wild? Because I really like games you can create your own avatar. Like, I really like that in Fire Emblem. I liked that in, what else was that game called? I forgot what the next one was, but any game where you can customize your own character is really cool for me. Okay, well, preset's not always bad. Now, does it have an excessive amount of needles in it? Because that's like pretty much the only thing where I draw the line. What do you mean by gotcha characters? Do you mean like the ones that are like chibis? Okay, that's good. Yeah, there were a lot of needles in the past CTD stream, but I think the fact that they didn't show them actually going through the characters helped a little bit. Oh, so it's like Mario Kart Tour? I might not like that as much. But I'm sure if I actually just play the game, I'll be fine. Wait a minute. So why is the gotcha mechanic there at all? Is it because that's how you update your party? I'm not much of a rager, but that is nice for people that are more vocal, like Pegasus. Okay, so your main character's preset, but your party you play gotcha for? Is that it? Hmm. I might have to actually play the game. Oh, not at all. Although I'm probably going to end the stream in a half hour just because I'm starting to get really tired and I've got family coming over later. But for now, you can talk about it. Okay, not a problem. Whew, give me a chance to catch my breath a little bit. Hmm. Hmm. Oh, No need to be sorry at all. Gave me a little bit of a chance to whew, gave me a little chance to rest. So you were saying? 1 minute. I need to turn on the fan. It's getting hot in here. Ooh. Here. Here we go. All right. Yeah, I would have to agree with you, Jubble. I wouldn't have gotten into Fire Emblem. Well, technically, it was because my brother got it for a birthday present, but I think that's how he got into Fire Emblem. And I had never heard of Metroid before Smash, never heard of Earthbound or F-Zero. Let's see. That's strange that they would have characters that you could only get sometimes. Kind of reminds me of Fire Emblem Heroes. Although now that you mention it, at least with Fire Emblem Heroes, they're based on characters that are already in the main Fire Emblem games. So maybe that's their way of saying, hey, if you want to know more about Ike, play Path of Radiance. I don't know. Although I can say, Jevil, I was a huge fan of Banjo and Kazooie even before Smash Brothers were a thing. So that was definitely a series I did not need Smash to get into. Yeah, I'm terrible at shooters, so I probably won't ever play Doom. But I'm glad you like it. Good job, Jevil. Very nice. It actually didn't take me very long to complete Zero Escape because I got into the franchise late. I'm still reading what you're saying. Kai. I'm just balancing between the two of you. I got into Zero Escape in 2015, and then I think like by the time I beat Virtue's Esther Ward, I believe it was only like a 3-month wait until Zero Time Dilemma. So I didn't have to wait that long at all compared to what most fans had to go through. Because Virtue's Esther Ward came out in 2012, and it took until 2016 for Zero Time Dilemma to come out. And at the time, Chunsoft had actually canceled Zero Time Dilemma, but again, the Americans came along and did their Operation Bluebird campaign, and then Chunsoft changed their mind. So that's why it took so long. Oh, that's so cool, Kai. I'm really glad that you could get so lucky like that. F2P. What does F2P mean? Do you think a Genshin Impact character could make it into Smash by any chance? Oh, that's nice. I definitely appreciate games in which I don't have to spend money, like Deltarune Chapter 1. Who am I kidding? Of course you love it, Jevil, because you named yourself after that game. Speaking of the game, Jevil, I still haven't been able to do a perfect run, but I have been able to beat Jevil without healing or using items. Still got to do the perfect run. Probably never will because it's been a while, but I have gotten really good at Jevil's battle. So, what are some of the character traits of this Hu Tao, is it pronounced? Like, what's her personality like? Well, I figured as much. Usually free to play games have some kind of gimmick. Well, at least there's going to be more Deltarune. There's not going to be more Zero Escape. Unless you read my novelization, because I do fill in some of the blanks that the story leaves out. But again, about 90% is straight from either the game or the director. So a lot of the stuff that wasn't in the game was said in interviews. Only about 10% of it was my own invention for the sake of making it better for a book format. It actually didn't take that long at all, Jevil, because I had already written a walkthrough for Zero Time Dilemma, so it took about, I probably have to estimate about 2 months, which is a really short time. The hardest part was figuring out, no, I better not say that, that's a spoiler. But yeah, there's a section that Pegasus hasn't gotten to yet that was a pain in the neck for me to write because I had to tie up the loose ends that Virtue's Esther Ward complicated. That's a cool description because I feel like that's kind of, she kind of reminds me of Kokichi in a manner of speaking. Would you say that Kokichi is a good comparison? And it's a novelization, Jevil, so it's, I mean, technically you could consider it fan fiction, but I wanted it to be as faithful to the original game as possible. The main the main difference I would say is that I wanted Sigma to actually sound like an old man. So the point of the novelization was that it was from Sigma's perspective, but like his internal monologues and his dialogue were closer to what a 67 would actually talk like. Not to say that he doesn't sound like a 67-year-old in Zero Time Dilemma, but I think he more so reminisces about making the Nonary game as opposed to actually thinking like an old man. So that was something I really wanted to do. But apart from that, it's like it even tells the solutions to the puzzles that Sigma gets into. So I wanted it to be like as close as possible to actually playing the game. Um, what do you mean by simp, Kai? Because I know that used to be a slang term for someone that's like a sexual predator, and I'm pretty sure that that's not what you meant. So could you define that, please? Yeah, I don't think anyone likes Zero Escape more than me. I would be really surprised to find someone that did. I mean, there are people that cosplay, there are people that write fan fictions, but I think I'm the only person that's written a full novelization of the third game. And if there is someone else that has, let me know. And even if you do find it, I'm pretty sure it is just fiction. It's not like actually legitimately like 90% faithful to the original source material. Oh, you said that you were a simp. I still don't understand what that means. Does that mean that you think she's attractive or what do you mean by that? Oh, I see. So you have like a very deep relationship with these characters because the writing sells you so much to them. Okay, I think I get it. I would honestly love it if Deltarune had time travel. I would be amazed. I mean, this is Toby Fox. I would be amazed if he put pretty much anything in there. Unless if he had too much politics, then I'd be a bit annoyed. But otherwise, I'm pretty excited to see. Guys, I'm starting to really lose my energy. It's not because of anything you guys said. It's not because I'm bored. It's not because I'm offended. It's just that I'm generally not an afternoon person to begin with. So this is just how my body is. It tends to slow down during the evening and speeds up at night. So I'm going to wrap up the stream. So before I do, did you have any last thoughts or questions or requests? Preference of personality traits. Okay, I can answer that really quickly. Um, I would like a character who, well, in terms of personality, I would like a character who's very calm and collected and doesn't really shout a whole lot. Like the character really internalizes, like, is this worth getting upset over? Do I have enough evidence? So I guess you could say kind of like Kyoko, but I also have a soft spot for the scatterbrained characters who are really happy but also really forgetful. So either one of those would be cool. As far as designs, I would just prefer if it was realistically proportioned. Like if it's a girl, look at an actual girl and don't try to exaggerate her features. Just make it look like as much like how an actual in-person girl would look like. Apart from that, I don't really care. Just as long as they don't have too many needles, I'm fine with anything as long as it's realistic. What about you, Jevil? Do you have any last questions or comments before I head out? If you could if you could send me like a character trailer of one of those characters, Kai, that would be really cool. Cause I'm pretty sure there might be multiple. Oh, I could just type in Genshin Impact. Yeah, I'll look that up probably tonight, I would say, because I tend to be better at being on YouTube at night, because that's when I have more energy. Last question. Well, you know I'm excited for World's End Club, but I'm also going to probably get it myself. So I would say AI The Somnium Files would be a Chunsoft game I'm excited for. But as far as if there's another visual novel I'd like her to play, I'd really like to see her play Ace Attorney. Because I just can't get over how similar Ace Attorney is to Danganronpa. Yep, I plan on renting it or buying it, whichever one is cheaper when it comes out. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for. Yeah, I know. That was amazing. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on my stream. I really appreciate. Yep, Ace Attorney is Capcom. I really appreciate your support, and I'm sorry if it seemed like I was ignoring you guys or made you bored. I really tried to include everyone, but sometimes it can be hard when people have different interests and personalities. But I hope I tried to the best of my ability, and I hope you all have a wonderful Easter. Thank you, you as well, Kai. I'll be looking forward to looking at your characters. If I forget, mention them mention them in some form, like Paul, don't forget Ganyu, because I'm not used to Japanese names very well, but I definitely will give it a try. So, as I always say in my videos, until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and Genshin Impact for Smash? We'll see.